Okay, let's go ahead and break open the second of the five 1986 Topps vending boxes. I zoomed the camera in a little bit here, make it maybe a little easier to see the cards. And I'll probably go a little bit faster this time. So again, the cards look okay here. You can see that kind of alternating pattern. It's indicative of the way they're packed. I'm going to try to come up with the optimal way to open these. I think I will just open it from the end again. Now, the first box, I did have there was some sticking due to presumably humidity on one end, and then there was some creasing in the cards on the other end. We'll see how this one goes. Okay, these seem okay, except there's a little bit of a bend here on one side of the card, which maybe a little bit extra bend, which we saw before. So we got Alan Nicely, Bobby Brown, Randy St. Clair, Denny Walling. Okay, that one's sticking a little, well, not really. Clint Hurdle, Brooke Jacoby, Sarge Matthews, Dan Pasqua, Tim Corcoran, Darrell Porter. We've had a lot of these before, maybe all of these. I think we're in kind of a similar sequence to what we've seen in the first one. Britt Burns, Doug Flynn, Gene Mock Manager, Gary Reedus, Mark Hill, Mike Krukow, Rich Bordy, Bill Russell, Larry Herndon, Bob Jones, Rick Miller, Bob Rogers Manager, Steve Kemp, Dave Stapleton, George Orta, Teddy Higuera, Tom Filer, Ray Fontenot, John Stuper, Joe Carter, a pretty good one. He had a good career. Of course, he hit that clutch home run for Minnesota in the World Series. This is his second year card with the Indians. Bo Diaz, nice action shot there. Tom Hume, Kelvin Chapman, and another Nolan Ryan. We got one of those in the first box. This one looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit of corner wear there, but that's we'll keep that one over there. Ray Miller, Disco Dan Ford, Vita Blue. Again, I talked a little bit about some of these players in the first box. Bob Lillis, Manager, Bill Schroeder, Bruce Perini, Rupert Jones, and Rod Scurry. So Nolan Ryan, otherwise nothing too special here. Nothing was sticking together, so that's good. Hopefully, I don't know what to see what happens on the other end. Doesn't seem to be sticking together either. So hopefully that was maybe just in one box, or maybe it'll just be one or two boxes like that. Greg Pryor, Mario Soto, Eddie Milner, Ken Griffey Sr., Andy McGaffigan, Mark Brown, Matt Young, George Wright, Rance Mullinax, Al Holland, Marty Castillo, Max Venable, Mookie Wilson. He had an okay career. And again, I'm looking for basically the stars, Hall of Famers. There are a couple of rookies here, nothing too dramatic on that. And then also looking, I'm going to taking a closer look at these cards to see if I think there might be any PSA 10s of cards that have very low populations of 10s. Those would be common cards. Neil Allen, Ken Phelps, good power hitter. Willie McGee. Show you the backs of these again. Topps cards, they give basically most of the stats, most of the important ones. You see McGee here. He had a tremendous year in 85 there, where he hit 353 and slugged over 500. And of course, there's the stats and the information on the player, and then there's a few notes on specific things that player did. And then the bottom, this little cartoon here, gives you some, basically some kind of first. So in this case, the first pitcher in Cardinals history to record 3 strikeouts in 1 inning on 9 pitches, which is an immaculate inning. I don't think it was necessarily called that back then, but Bob Gibson did that. But that's something that is made note of when it happens nowadays. There's Ron Robinson, Wayne Gross, Davey Johnson manager, Jim Gantner, Terry Whitfield, Vaughn Hayes, Ron Mathis, Mitch Webster, Reed Nichols, Candy Maldonado, Chris Welsh, Juan Berenguer, Goose Gossage. Okay, I think that's the first. I think that's the first Gossage we've had. Hall of Famer. This is fairly late in his career. Of course, he was best known, probably best known for his years with the Yankees. Tony Phillips, Cecil Fielder. Tony Phillips looks like that's a weird expression on his face. He's signing a ball there. Okay, Cecil Fielder. Dave Stewart. Dave Stewart. This is kind of interesting with Dave Stewart because this is before he really became great. He was a great pitcher for several years with the A's, but that was after this. It took him a long time to really get his career really going, and I believe he was into his 30s before he really became a great pitcher. Ricky Horton, Greg Harris, Denny Gonzalez, Alan Nicely again. That was the first card we had in this box. And Ken Dixon, same pattern. Randy St. Clair, Denny Walling, Clint Hurdle, Brooke Jacoby, Dave Sachs, Gary Matthews again. Yeah, we're getting the same pattern here. Tim Corcoran. It's too bad to have the same pattern that close together. Lee Lacy, Bob Baylor, Britt Burns, Doug Flynn, Gene Walk manager. This one's starting out a little slow. Okay, Gary Reedus, Mark Hill, Mike Krukow, Rich Bordy, Bill Russell, Larry Herndon, Tom Pashorek, Bob Jones, Rick Miller, Bob Rogers again, Steve Kemp. Again, these are all basically repeats. And a lot of them are repeats from this same box. Tom Fowler, Ray Fontenot, same stuff. Well, but it means we got another Nolan Ryan. I can't complain about that. Nolan Ryan is part of that sequence. So that's the second Ryan in the box and the third so far in the 2 boxes. Bob Lillis, Bill Schroeder, Danny Cox. Phil Niekro. Okay, I think I had a Phil Niekro in the first box. That Hall of Fame knuckleballer. It's a pretty well centered card too. Rod Scurry also with the Yankees. Greg Pryor, Mario Soto, Eddie Milner, Paul Molitor, Hall of Famer. I think we had him in the first box as well. Andy McGaffigan, Mark Brown, Matt Young, George Wright, Greg Gross, Gary Carter. I don't think, did we have a Gary Carter in the first one? I'm not sure. But another Hall of Famer. Rick Rhoden had a good career. Marty Castillo, Max Venable, Mookie Wilson again, Mark Langston. I think I remember he was a big strikeout pitcher. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, in his rookie year for the Mariners, this is his second year card. In his rookie year, he led the league in strikeouts with 204. Also led the league in walks with 118. Danny Darwin. Never quite evolved into the kind of pitcher they were hoping he would. Neil Allen, Ken Phelps again, another Willie McGee, and there's part of the Pete Rose special. This is card number 6. Again, this was commemorating Pete Rose breaking Ty Cobb's all-time hit record, and so they put out these cards that had showed pictures of the older Topps cards. Jack Morris, Hall of Famer, pretty good looking card. Craig Reynolds, Rick Manning, John Butcher, and Terry Whitfield. Gary Renicky, Dave Rozema, oh, Dale Murphy again. I think we got a Dale Murphy last time, and that's a pretty good one too. That's pretty well centered, and that's a good looking card. Reed Nichols, Candy Maldonado. Okay, there's another one of the Pete Rose commemorative cards. That's card number 5. We got the Padres leaders. That's Jerry Kennedy, yeah, catcher. Jim Morrison, Tom Brookins, Tony Bernazard, Dave Stewart, already mentioned him. Tom Seaver turned back the clock to 1976. These turn back the clock cards featured an old Topps card of a star, and then also gives information on that year. And so the Tom Seaver highlight was he pitched 5 shutouts during the year and set a record with his 9th consecutive season of 200 strikeouts. I think, I wonder if maybe Nolan Ryan broke that record. Dave Palmer, Ron Oster, Sammy Stewart, Ken Dixon, Don Sutton, another Hall of Famer. Okay, this little section in here has been a little better for Hall of Famers. Don Sutton, that's a good action shot of Sutton. This is toward the end of his career. Blue Jays leader, that's Dave Stieb, of course. No, Jim Clancy. That's Jim Clancy, not Dave Stieb. Well, that's my bad. The team leaders cards, they depict the player who's been with the team the longest. So it's not necessarily the biggest star. Tigers leaders, Lance Parrish is on the front of that. Mike Fitzgerald, Bobby Meacham, Rafael Santana, and another one of the Pete Rose commemorative cards. That is card number 4 in the set. White Sox leaders, Richard Dotson of all people. Continuous service since 1979, so that's only like 6 years. Dan Gladden, Spike Owen, Herm Winningham, Donnie Scott, Scott Thompson. Twins leaders, that is Mickey Hatcher, who's been with the team all of 4 years, 1981. Cardinals leaders, Bob Forsch, Davey Lopes, Alvin Davis, Jose Uribe. Reds leaders, getting a lot of these leaders cards. That's Dave Concepcion. Rangers, that's Charlie Huff. Rough, tough Charlie Huff. I think we had his base card in the first box. Steve Balboni, Kirby Puckett, Hall of Famer. There's some decently centered cards in here. This is still in the era where Topps had some trouble with getting these cut right and having them well centered. But this Puckett, maybe a little corner damage, but that's a really centered, well centered card. Nice action shot of Puckett. On there's Rough, Tough Charlie Huff, the base card. He looks like he's, it's not a very good close-up. He always looked like he was in his 40s, even early in his career. He was born in 48, so he was still in his 30s, in his late 30s in this, on that card. Jeff Calhoun, Frank Tanata, he had a really good career. This is kind of middle of his career. He's pretty high up there on the list of pitchers with the most wins who aren't in the Hall of Fame. Probably won't make the Hall of Fame, but see, is that Bill Russell? Yeah, Bill Russell. And he's been with the Dodgers since 1970. And of course we have Hal McRae. He was with the Royals a long time too, 1972. Andre Dawson, Hall of Famer. Nice one. Steve Ontiveros, Ron Kittle. He won Rookie of the Year. He was a power hitter. Didn't have a great career. but hit those 35 home runs in his rookie year. But he had good power. Mariners, that's Dave Henderson. Let's see, Astros, that's Julio. It's Jose Cruz. Damaso Garcia, Bill Dolly, Dick Schofield, Jim, I don't know if that was Beatty or Beatty. Bert Blyleven, another Hall of Famer. It's actually a pretty good action shot. There's some good action shots in this set. And there we have the Expos leaders. Of course, Andre Dawson with them for a long time, Hall of Famer. That's Mookie Wilson. Yeah, Mookie Wilson for the Mets. He'd only been with them since 1980. Nobody was there a long time. This was, of course, this was the year that 86 was the year that the Mets won the World Series over the Red Sox. Bill Doran, Tom Niedenfuer, Mike Schmidt, nice Hall of Famer there. He was my favorite player there. In the years, I'll say the very late 70s and into the early 80s. Giants leaders, that Greg Minton. Yeah, I wouldn't have recognized him. Yankees leader, that was Mickey Rivers, but I know that. No, Willie Randolph. Yeah, Willie Randolph. Okay, Mike Marshall. Terry Forster. Terry Forster, he was actually a good pitcher, but he maybe best known back in the mid to late 80s when David Letterman's late night show was very popular on NBC. I think it was after a weekend, and Dave had seen the Atlanta Braves, presumably on the Superstation, and he just out of nowhere just started commenting on how overweight Terry Forster was. And this is about at this time, he's listed as 6'4", 220. Yeah, I don't know about that. And Dave just went off on this jag about it, calling him a load and a fat tub of goo. And eventually Forster did come on the show and did a cooking demo, believe it or not. Tommy Herr, Alejandro Pena, Brian Downing. Okay, this is another one of the Pete Rose cards. That's number 2. We've had almost all of those special Pete Rose cards here in this box. Dane Orge. David Letterman had a top 10 list of the strangest baseball names, and the tie for first was Dane Orge and Garth Orge, his brother. Dave Anderson. There's Sparky Anderson, manager. Dwight Dewey Evans, very good career. A lot of people, myself included, would have liked to see him get in the Hall of Fame. Particularly, it'd been nice to see him get in before Jim Rice. But I think Evans, I think, still has a legitimate shot of making the Hall of Fame. So, A's leaders. Who is that? Oh, Dwayne Murphy, okay. Jackie Gutierrez, Chris Cotteroli, Mark Gubza, John Tudor, Bill Kruger, Willie Randolph, Joe Hesketh, Bobby Castillo, Mika Saski. You just can't win flipping these cards around. They're just all different orientations. Tom Lawless, Mike Lacoste, Joel Youngblood, Larry McWilliams, Jim Wynn, Lloyd Mosby, Craig Gerber, Donnie Hill, Jim Gott, Jerry Naron, Joaquin Andahar. He had a really good 1985 until kind of later in the season. The Cardinals still made the World Series, and of course they got beat by the Royals. Earl Weaver, Hall of Fame manager. John Tudor All-Star card. Tom Foley, Jim Dwyer, Bob Dernier, Sammy Khalifa, Dave Parker, really good career. Urbano Lugo, Dennis Eckersley, Hall of Famer. This is when he was still a starting pitcher before he he was a good starting pitcher, then he became one of the best closers. Charlie Lee, Mickey Tettleton, Tony Perez, Hall of Famer, part of the Big Red Machine in the mid-70s. Rich Thompson. We saw this one in the first box, a 1985 record breaker. Phil Niekro, the oldest pitcher to throw a shutout. He was 46 years old, and he threw a complete game shutout. Scott Bradley, Jeff Reardon, good closer. Jose Cruz, Lynn Jones, Damaso Garcia All-Star, Tom Gorman, Bruce Sutter, another Hall of Fame reliever. And that's a good looking card. Alan Trammell, back-to-back Hall of Famers. Mike Fischlin, Jason Thompson, and another Hall of Famer. 3 Hall of Famers and about 6 cards there. Robin Yount. This is a good looking card too. Get a lot of I don't know on these 86s because there's a lot of little print defects on these, and that may be some chipping there. But there's tiny little dots on there like print defects. There's just maybe hard to see, but there's like a reddish one there, and I don't know how much that affects the grading on these. But I've had a lot of really well centered star cards in this box. Pete Rose, well, that's the key record breaker. Pete Rose breaking Ty Cobb's lifetime hits record. Dwayne Walker, Floyd Yeomans, Alfredo Griffin, Cecilio Guante. Got some corner damage there on that one. Maybe this one. Checklist, first checklist of this box. I think we had like 4 checklists in the first box. Cal Ripken, Hall of Famer. Some damage on there, but nice card. Alan Ashby. Frank White, longtime second baseman for the Royals. Steve Jeltz, I don't think we've had him yet. Bo Diaz. Roy Smith. Dave Stieb, had a lot of good years with the Blue Jays. Kirk Gibson, very popular player. Of course, most famous for that World Series home run with the Dodgers. Dave Henderson, he's also famous for a big home run. He homered with 2 out in the top of the 9th for the Red Sox in the 1986 AL Championship Series against the Angels. In fact, the Angels were 1 strike away from going to the World Series, and Dave Henderson hit that home run, and the Red Sox ended up winning the last 3 games to make it to the World Series, the 86 World Series, which of course we already talked about, the Mets winning that. Another Hall of Famer, Lee Smith, Greg Minton, Tim Hewlett, Roger McDowell. He was a fireballer. This should be his rookie card, I believe, unless he was in a traded set. Rick Cerrone, most famous for his time with the Yankees. Gary Maddox, the Secretary of Defense. He was an excellent center fielder. Bruce Brenny, Rupert Jones, Gene Nelson, Alex Trevino, Don Baylor. Of course, he became a manager. Ken Griffey Sr., Buddy Biancalana, Dave Smith, Bill Caudle, Al Cowens, Rance Mulliniks, Mike Gallego, Al Holland, Steve Crawford, Ted Power. Not a bad name for a pitcher, have last name Power. He, interestingly enough, was not a big strikeout pitcher, though. Gary Templeton had a very good career as a shortstop. Ed Jurak, Craig Lefferts, Don Ossie, Willie Leal, Willie Upshaw. I hope maybe to send in some of these 86 cards to be graded, but but I want to make sure I only send in the stars that I think might be PSA 9s or so, and any commons that are PSA 10. I was looking on eBay trying to find I was trying to find some inexpensive examples to compare them to, because I'm not really quite sure how they deal with. A lot of these have these little tiny print defects and such, and so I want to see how those are graded. So I thought about buying maybe buying a couple of graded cards just to have some examples to see. And Willie Upshaw happened to be the least expensive Gem Mint 10 card in this series that I could find, which is about $10, which is the cost of grading basically. Ron Robinson, Wayne Gross, Davey Johnson, manager card, Jim Gantner. We've seen a lot of these already. Jerry Hairston, Charlie Moore. Nice action shot there. Getting ready, looks like to throw out, try to throw out a. I don't see the batter there. I don't know whether that's throwing out a base stealer or maybe some other play. Jeff Reardon, All-Star relief pitcher. Carlos Diaz, Jose De Leon, Dave Winfield, Hall of Famer when he was with the Yankees. Of course, best known for Padres. He played for the Padres for quite a while, but I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I suppose a lot of people might think of him from the Yankees, but it was the Padres that he came up with and became a big star. And this is a good-looking card too. This has got really good centering. So had a slow start on the Stars and Hall of Famers, but really coming on good. These are definitely unsearched boxes for sure. Frank DiPino, Barry Bonnell, or Bonnell. I think it was Bonnell. Bonnell, Bonnell, not sure. Ed Romero, Dave Winfield All-Star card. All-Star cards generally aren't nearly as popular with collectors, and I never really liked them all that much. I always liked the base cards because it actually gave the full information on the players on the back. Milt Wilcox, Pedro Guerrero, good power hitter. Dan Quisenberry, one of my favorites. There in the '80s. The sidearmed relief ace. Almost never walked anybody. He had a long stretch there as a reliever where several years where he walked about one batter every 10 innings. Jody Davis, George Brett All-Star, not bad. Looks like Brett just looks like he just got out of bed. I think it's probably just hat hair, but Ron Reynolds, Rudy Law, Vaughn Hayes, Ron Mathis. This card has got some weird damage. It's I don't know. That's kind of strange. That one must have been damaged. I'm sure that was damaged in the equipment. There's no damage to adjacent cards. That one's going to get thrown away, I imagine. Mitch Webster, Atlee Hammaker, Kevin Bass, Chris Welsh, Juan Berenguer, Rich Gossage. We've had this is part of a sequence we had earlier in this box, but nice to get another Goose Gossage. Tony Phillips, again, that weird expression on his face. Cecil Fielder. And this is an early, this is a pretty early card for Seth. That's right. I think this is his rookie? Yeah, this is his rookie card. So that's kind of nice. Cecil Fielder, I'll say he looks maybe a little fitter than he did with the Tigers when he was their big power hitter. Looking pretty good there. Sean Dunston, Ricky Horton, Greg Harris, Denny Gonzalez, Dan Ford, yet again, Vita Blue. We've had Dan Ford, Vita Blue, Rick Honeycutt pattern again. I think that's the third time we've had that pattern in the two boxes. Jim Clancy, Bob Lillis, Bill Schroeder, Danny Cox, Phil Niekro, Hall of Famer, Hall of Fame Knuckler again. That's the second one in this box. Rod Scurry, Greg Pryor, Mario Soto, Eddie Milner, Paul Molitor, Hall of Famer, another one of those. Andy McGaffigan, Mark Brown, Matt Young, George Wright, Greg Gross, Gary Carter, Hall of Famer again, another one in this box. Rick Rhoden, Marty Castillo, Max Venable, Mookie Wilson, yeah, that's kind of the middle of his career. Mark Langston, Danny Darwin again, Neil Allen, Ken Phelps, all repeats here. Willie McGee. There's Pete Rose, card number 6. Jack Morris, Hall of Famer. Craig Reynolds and Rick Manning of the Brewers. How are we doing? 30 minutes. John Butcher, Jerry Whitfield, Gary Renicky, Dave Rosema, Dale Murphy. Again, I don't know. I don't think I've been putting the Dale Murphys in here. Maybe I should. I may go back when I go back through these. I may have to think about that. Reed Nichols, Candy Maldonado, another Pete Rose commemorative card. Oops. We have the Padres leaders again. Jim Morrison, Tom Brookins, Tony Bernazard, Dave Stewart, another Tom Seaver turned back the clock, 1976. Dave Palmer, Ron Oster, Sammy Stewart, Ken Dixon, Don Sutton, Hall of Famer. And I think we had that one in this box before as well. Blue Jays, Tigers. Note that these are not the team cards. These have the leaders in the different hitting and pitching categories. The manager cards are the team checklist cards. Mike Fitzgerald. I don't know whether they came back to this, but there for a long time, Topps would have like a group picture of the team, and that was the team card. But they weren't doing that here in '86. So there's no team picture. Bobby Meacham, Rafael Santana, another Pete Rose commemorative. White Sox leaders, Dan Gladden, Spike Owen, Herm Winningham, Donnie Scott, Scott Thompson. We had that before in this box, the 2 Scotts back to back. Twins leaders, Cardinals leaders, Davey Lopes, Alvin Davis, Jose Uribe, Rangers leaders with rough tough Charlie Huff again. Steve Balboni, Kirby Puckett, Hall of Famer. I think we had one of those, I think, in the first box, and that's another good-looking card. This box there's a lot of good centering in this box, and this is a pretty sharp card. And there's Charlie Huff himself again, just like we had before, the Rangers team card, and then his base card. Jeff Calhoun, Frank Tanana. Dodgers, this was the same sequence we had before. We had a bunch of leaders cards. And Andre Dawson, another Hall of Famer again. So there's, I'd say this done pretty well here so far. We got just maybe about 100 cards left in this box, maybe a little less than 100. Steve Ontiveros, Ron Kittle, Mariners leaders, again, Astros leaders. Damaso Garcia, Bill Dolly, Dick Schofield, Jim Beatty, Burt Blyleven, Hall of Famer. Again, Expos with Andre Dawson on the front. Mets leaders, Bill Doran, Tom Niedenfuer, Mike Schmidt, again. And these sequences are, one of the reasons that, these first 2 boxes, people might think, oh, I got 1,000 cards, and you only need 792 in the set. Oh, we're going to get the whole set. No, it's not even close. If these things were perfectly randomly distributed, it takes several thousand cards to have a 50-50 chance of getting every card in the set. That's just the way the probabilities work. Now, these are not random. We see these sequences, which could possibly, I'm not sure that could make it even harder to get all of them if you keep getting the same sequences. A couple more team leaders: Mike Marshall, Terry Forster again, Tommy Herr, Alejandro Pena, Brian Downing, Pedro Guerrero, Dan Quisenberry, Jody Davis, George Brett All-Star again. Another Pete Rose commemorative, Dane Orge. Dave Anderson, Sparky Anderson, there's the Anderson twins. Dwight Evans, another good one. Evans is one, I feel like Evans is one I should probably put in the maybe I should put that. I can't remember whether I did that with the first one, but put that in the star pile because I think he still could get in the Hall of Fame. Jackie Gutierrez, Chris Cotteroli, Mark Gubazah, John Tudor, Bill Kruger, Willie Randolph, Joe Hesketh, Bobby Castillo, Nick Asaski, Tom Lawless, George Bell. We're almost done. This is the last bunch here, these they're more bent here toward the edge, and some of those are going to be a little bit warped. So a few of these are, I think some of these are probably too bent to be high grade. Not sure. But Mike Lacoste, Joel Youngblood, Larry McWilliams, Jim Wynn. I'm going to turn these back upside down. I want to keep these separate that are very bent. Lloyd Mosby. That one is pretty warped. Craig Gerber. Donnie Hill. Jim Gott. Jerry Naran. Joaquin Andahar, Earl Weaver, manager card, John Tudor, Tim Foley, Jim Dwyer. We've seen pretty much all of these before. They're getting a little less warped here. Bob Dernier, Sammy Khalifa, Dave Parker, Urbano Lugo, Dennis Eckersley, Hall of Famer, Charlie Lee. I think the warping is down a little bit here. Mickey Tuttle. We had this sequence before. We had Eckersley, we had Tony Perez, there's that Phil Necro record breaker card, Scott Bradley, Jeff Reardon, Jose Cruz, Lynn Jones, Damaso Garcia, Tom Gorman, Bruce Sutter, Hall of Famer, Alan Trammell, Hall of Famer, yep, and Robin Yount, 2 cards later. I knew that was coming. Pete Rose, record breaker, Dwayne Walker. That Pete Rose record breaker, that might be worth something too. I gotta take a more careful look here to make sure that I kind of sorting out what I think are what are the cards that possibly have some value. Dwayne Walker, still fun just to look through these though. Floyd Yeomans, Alfredo Griffin, Charlie Moore, Jeff Reardon All-Star, Carlos Diaz, Jose De Leon, Dave Winfield, Hall of Famer again, Frank DePino, Barry Bunnell, Ed Romero, and Milt Wilcox. All right, so that's box 2. Got a nice stack of stars. In fact, the ones I have here as stars, I thought we did okay on the first box, but there's the first box on the left, and there's the second box on the right. We got twice as many star cards in the second box. There were a lot of good sequences that repeated, so that's actually pretty nice. I think we might have, I don't know, did we have 3 of some of these? I'm not sure. We might have had 3. There's 2 Winfields. Let's see. Yeah, I think we might have had 3 of a couple of these. So when I get through all 5 boxes, I'll have a video with a summary of all this. But eventually here I'll do another video for the third and fourth and fifth boxes. 3 more videos coming up, and then a summary. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.